Mr. President, members of the Senate, I rise today to introduce you to the family of a courageous lady who paved the way for hospital workers in this state to receive pay equity and fair treatment. Miss Mary Moultrie is a civil rights icon. There was an article written in the Post and Courier shortly before her death, after her death, that epitomized this trailblazer's work and her activities, her perseverance, her tenacity, her courage on behalf of workers. And I want to read to you from that article. In the late 60s, Mary Moultrie saw injustice and spoke out. For that, her career as a nurse was sometimes threatened. Change came after she began one of the leading organizers of a 113-day strike against the Charleston hospital system, a movement that would help black nurses and other workers to get pay, respect, and the recognition they deserved. I want to quote Ms. Moultrie, "We're all black, predominantly women, and many of us were heads of the household." Moultrie recalled of the 1969 walkout that dominated the Charleston headlines. "The majority of us were out there for the cause." Many in the civil rights community who remember the 1969 hospital strike as one of Charleston's defining moments in that era. Thousands took to the street. For more than 3 months that spring, after mostly black workers went out in protest of discriminatory practices, unequal pay, institutional harassment, and widespread racial discord at the Medical College Hospital, now the Medical University of South Carolina. The strike was more than 2 years coming, but was triggered by the firing of 12 employees. The movement spread quickly. About 450 people from Medical College and 80 from Charleston County Hospital joined in, setting up a chapter, Local 1199B of the Hospital Nursing Employees Union, but to no surprise, it was not recognized by this state. Picket lines, arrests, curfews, and an increased police presence eventually took over the city as tensions grew. Coretta Scott King, honorary chairman of the hospital union and wife of slain leader Martin Luther King, came to march down Ashley Avenue, joined by Andrew Young and Ralph Abernathy, both leaders of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. Bill Saunders, a local civil rights activist and longtime Moultrie friend from the strike, said Moultrie should be considered as a pioneer for workers' rights statewide and not just for those in the medical field. Saunders also said that Moultrie did not come away unscathed from her activities, being branded and labeled as a troublemaker throughout her career. Years after the hospital strike was settled, a sort of healing would take place as a marker honoring the 1969 hospital workers' strike went up on MUSC campus. Moultrie at the time noted progress. Today, we want to pay respect, and I'm being joined by Representative Robert Brown of Hollywood, and Representative David Mack of North Charleston, two representatives who have been vocal about the work that Mary Moultrie did. And I understand that there's also a parallel House resolution signifying your mother's work and dedication to the work and the fair wages standards on behalf of workers across the state. But joining us today, we have Ms. Moultrie's daughter, who I had the opportunity to meet just a few minutes ago, but talked to her during the time of her mother's funeral, Ms. Arnice Moultrie. She's a resident in Columbia. She's the daughter of Mary Moultrie. We have Ms. Barbara Gathers, a friend, a first cousin of Mary Moultrie. Mr. Kerry Taylor, professor at the Citadel, good friend of Mary Moultrie. Ms. Shirley Scott, co-worker, adopted daughter of Ms. Mary Moultrie for 20 worked at 20 years at the city of Charleston, 31 years. Mr. James Simmons' cousin, and Miss Christine Nelson, who's always on the firing lines for workers at MUSC. We got some guests from MUSC, and I'm glad that they came, and I want them to stand because I got to tell them something. But Dr. Pat Cawley, we want Dr. Pat Cawley to stand, Chief Executive Officer at MUSC Hospital. Miss Barbara Johnson Williams, MUSC board member, and there are about 15 or 16 friends of Mary Moultrie. They're up there, and there's some in the lobby who are here to commemorate this courageous woman. Now, I've been in the Senate for almost 2 sessions now. Time and time again, we read these resolutions in honor of civil rights legends. But I got to say that some of the conditions that these civil rights leaders march for still persist in the state of South Carolina. And this body is trying to work on these issues, but we must address pay equity in all workplaces in South Carolina. We must address gender fairness. We must make sure that the legacy and life of people like Mary Moultrie and people like the senator from Darlington just read, Miss Gloria Robinson, who was also a nurse, that their work was not in vain. And in that regard, I am challenging the Medical University of South Carolina to pay tribute to this courageous leader. And I am calling on the Medical University of South Carolina to officially apologize for the 1969 hospital workers' strike, widely reported, because too many people gave their lives, gave their hearts, gave their souls for us not to recognize that this work paved the way for people like Marlon Kimpson and people like Seth Whipper and people like Representative Brown and people like David Mack, so that we could be here today. We wouldn't have the Human Affairs Commission but for the work that Bill Saunders and Mary Moultrie and others did. We really wouldn't have minimum wage and pay equity in some of the jobs, but for the work that these champions petitioned but for the work of Mary Moultrie. And so, Mr. President, I would like to allow for the resolution to be read. And after the reading of the resolution, I want to unanimously request that the roll of the Senate be added. And then, I know we got a lot to do today, but this is very important to me, that we adjourn for a moment so that we can greet this family. Recess. We got some unreadiness, I'm sorry, but we want to have a brief recess.
Yes, sir.
Because I know we got a lot of work to do. These people drove from Charleston and all across the state, and I want to make sure that the record is clear about this honor today. My heart is heavy. Publish the resolution.
Clerk will please read the resolution.
They sent